Ever since I covered the best moms in fighting games, I've gotten bountiful requests to cover the greatest dads in fighting games, which is a wonderful idea. I love looking at character backstory and seeing what motivates our favorite fictional fighters, like their families. In fact, dads were much more common than moms when looking at characters across many fighting game franchises, so because of that, I'll be implementing the 1 per series of origin rule to show the variety of fatherly franchises. Of origin are the keywords here, so all those SNK fighting games would count as separate franchises in that case. And just like the mom list, I'll be adding some parental insight with my own mom co-hosting. My dad definitely would have co-hosted this with me, but unfortunately he passed away in 2018, so my mom was honored to take his place.
Hi everyone, I'm glad to be back to discuss our favorite dads in fighting games. And like our moms in fighting games list, the better the parenting style, the better the ranking.
We'll be judging based on backstory, moveset, and how these dads may have had an influence on their children. Now let's take a look at the top 10 dads in fighting games. Number 10, Lau from Virtua Fighter. Lau gets a spot not because of the dad he once was, but because of the dad he became, kind of. By the time of Virtua Fighter 4 and 5, he built up a relationship with his formerly estranged daughter, Pi. It was not the ultimate step up from being a distant father as he was in previous games, but it was some nice closure to their character arc. It would have been even nicer if Virtua Fighter 5 showed this story in-game instead of just posting this information in the manual and that's it, but I'll settle for at least knowing that it happened and reenacting the story on my own in the game itself. When Pi heard her father was dying of an illness, she pursued wherever he was in the world to see him again. Just as she found him, his student Lei Fei was about to turn on him and kill him. She came in at the last second to save him, and now they both realize the true bond between father and daughter. Their words, not mine, but I'll trust them on this. At least he realized the error of his past when he was off doing his own thing. He was just too focused on training, or his job as a chef, which I want to see more plot lines about.
I'm glad he came back into his daughter's life. Does he cook for her? And does she like his cooking?
I'd like to think he stuck around with his daughter for a while where he'd have time to cook her a few meals, but the story goes that he followed the way of the fighter after this, since he knew there was nothing more he could do for Pi as a father, as she was a capable adult now. Pi's mutual understanding was she had to enter the same tournament that Lau was training for to show him that her love was strong both emotionally and in combat. Once again, their words, not mine. I wonder if Pi can stand up to her father's Koen-Ken technique, the name of his fierce yet somewhat elegant fighting style.
I like the power in his tiger swallow fist, though his facial features and hair remind me of a mad scientist.
Nah, he's never truly been a bad guy. That's just his normal facial expression. He scowls at least 90% of the time, though hopefully the occasional smiles appeared when he was reunited with his daughter. Number 9, Rikuo from Darkstalkers, also known as Allbath in Japan. I love Darkstalkers storylines, and the Donovan and Nita relationship is excellent, and probably the superior father-child relationship from a visual standpoint. She follows him around, and it's all cute, and she might be the ruler of humanity according to Jeddah. But consider this for a storyline. Rikuo the Fishman. Not only is he the father of one, but his family is rebuilding their lost society. In his Darkstalkers ending, we see him and his newly discovered wife had a kid, and by Darkstalkers 3, his son has grown a little. After defeating final boss Jeddah, he meets back up with his son, who found a new species of merfolk and a friend all in one. So the father-son duo travel with this new kid and discover a whole society cut off from the world. They single-handedly are rebuilding the civilization of merfolk through family bonding. Rikuo's also just a great influence on his kid. When he's going into all these battles, he's pretty friendly. He's intrigued with the surface world and means no harm, but if he does have to cause harm, then he has a great set of attacks to do it with.
I like the way he morphs into different fish to use their noxious abilities. I especially like when he turns himself into a clam and shoots his opponents with pearls. Think of all the jewelry he could make with them. He could sell them on QVC.
I don't think I could personally pick a favorite aquatic-themed attack from him, but the crab claws and frog tongue are top-notch. Regardless, he's leading his son in the right direction, both in terms of courteousness and how to fight. Plus, we can't forget that he is strangely attractive for a fish man. He's held that title since 1994.
And they were saying that before The Shape of Water.
Number 8. Raphael from Soul Calibur. Raphael spent most of the series as a vampire whose main goal is to malfest the world, making everyone and everything all vampire-like just as himself. It's a chaotic neutral situation where he doesn't really care what happens to the rest of the world, he just needs to spread his technically evil influence.
Now, Soul Calibur, create a new world for Amy and me!
However, the one endearing thing about this plan, if you want to call it that, is he wants to make the world better for his daughter Amy more than anything. In his twisted view, he thinks if the world fits his vision, then Amy will be equally as happy. Amy's clearly a good person, so she's behind the scenes unraveling his plans and making sure he doesn't succeed, but also making sure he doesn't die in the process, like a good daughter would.
Ring out!
She sees he's corrupted compared to how he was when she was younger, but she still knows there's some good in his heart, misled by the wicked sword Soul Edge. When both of Amy's biological parents died and Raphael was shunned from his noble family, he took refuge with Amy as she was just trying to survive on her own, giving the duo a pathway to form a bond, with Raphael eventually adopting her. Considering their history together and his attitude towards her now, it's pretty clear how deeply he cares for Amy, even offering to take the fighters that lose to him and I guess make them her pets?
Perhaps I shall make you Amy's pet!
Dad, what the hell are you doing? I did not ask for an adult human for Christmas.
Well, at least he does it for his daughter. That's something. And he brings her roses.
The flowers are one of his thoughtful gestures that she probably appreciates. Raphael knows true beauty and style, and it all starts with a rose. Have you seen the way he dresses and the way he fights?
I like his fencing style and the power in his jabs. He reminds me of Zorro with that hat and mask. Does he carve an R into his enemies?
While he's a skilled swordsman, I think he's more interested in poking holes in his opponent rather than his sword penmanship, though we never see the loser's body when he's done fighting, so maybe he does. Or maybe they're just a pincushion in the end. Either way, it's all for Amy.
Now you'll see the extent of my power! KO. You shall make a fine pet for Amy.
Number 7. Kai Kisuke from Guilty Gear. Kai has one son named Sin, and he automatically had to make a big decision with his son shortly after he was born. Kai was offered a position as a puppet ruler of a nation, which he had to accept under duress for his family's safety. If it was leaked that there were gears in his family, which are living biological weapons of war, the public would turn on them since they only see gears as a threat. They are unaware that certain ones have human emotions and are benevolent, namely Kai's wife Dizzy, also a top 10 fighting game mom, and his young son, who is part gear, part human. Dizzy calls Kai's friendly rival and reformed gear Soul Bad Guy for a solution. They ultimately decide to let Sin train with Soul in solidarity for a few years to avoid any harm. Despite not being able to see his son for a few years, Kai had his kid's best interest in mind when sending him off.
I admire how he sacrificed being with his son to keep him safe.
Ultimately, it was for the better, and even though Sin is grown now, it's only been 3 years. Gears just age faster. Now that they have a game plan on how to move away from the hostile public, Sin can rejoin his father. You could also make the argument that Soul is basically Sin's dad since he did all the hard work raising him, but that's a Goku versus Piccolo debate that I'm not ready to have. Choose your favorite, even if it's just on playstyle, to which I'd have to go with Kai since I prefer the longer reach he has with his sword in battle.
I like his backward flips and floating landings. His sword skills certainly are electrifying.
Kai will shock you with his attacks and parenting skills. Just don't ask Sin who the better parental figure has been in his life, since that will reignite a feud that we don't need. Or he can just say Dizzy is best parent and deflect the question.
Win.
Number 6. Bass Armstrong from Dead or Alive. His daughter is Tina Armstrong, a Dead or Alive mainstay and professional wrestler. After her mother died, Bass raised her as a single father since she was 6 years old, and to this day wants to know everything she's doing in life, even when she's an adult who can make her own choices. He's also insistent that she maintains the family business, being the Armstrong legacy of professional wrestling. No doubt she learned everything about that fighting style from her dad. They may have different wrestling methods due to the slender body type of Tina, but Bass is still a master grappler and probably a good teacher.
Although he doesn't move fast, he makes up for it with pure power. He definitely has classic wrestler moves. I especially like those backbreakers and spinning throws. I bet he liked those big swing rides at the amusement park. I wonder if he ever gets dizzy though.
The only thing that seems to make him sick is when Tina tries to run off and pursue her dreams, and not because he doesn't want her to be happy, but because he's afraid of what would happen to her. Tina desires fame and fortune beyond the ring. She wants to be a singer, dancer, movie star, model, everything that puts her right in the center of the public eye. He knows how those talent agents are, and he's not letting his daughter near them. Also, there's a bit of selfishness in there with the whole wrestling family tradition, but it's clearly because he's attached to his daughter and thinks he knows what's best for her. It's out of love.
I like the fact that he's an overprotective dad, but I pity the boyfriend his daughter brings home to meet him. I wonder if he would go see Tina's movies if she winds up becoming more of a star than she already is. I'm sure he'd be gritting his teeth the whole time. Do you think he'd punch the screen out if she had a kissing scene?
Oh, that would totally enrage him to no end. Number 5. Hydern from King of Fighters. Hydern starts off his story with the most tragedy. When Hydern was receiving a military promotion, main villain Rugal Bernstein stormed the base to show how much of a threat his own crew was. Rugal killed 50 men, ripped out Hydern's eye, and killed Hydern's wife and biological daughter. In a combination of rage and depression, Hydern started his own group of renegade fighters, the Ikari Warriors. Their main goal was to eliminate Rugal and the demonic force that he was pursuing called Orochi. It basically set all these plans in motion. During one of their missions, Hydern encounters a village where all the inhabitants were dead except for one little girl, Leona. Sympathizing with the girl who also lost all her family and still being a compassionate guy in general, he adopted her, giving them both a chance to restart their families. The truth is that ancient demon blood in Leona led her to kill the village, but that's beside the point of Hydern's parenting skills, plus she got better. Besides being a loving father, Hydern taught her how to fight. However, knowing the perils of the battlefield, Hydern forbids Leona from joining their missions initially. Still, understanding that you have to let the ones that you love go off in the world when they are ready, he eventually puts Leona on the main missions with the Ikari Warriors team starting in King of Fighters 96. He made sure Leona was prepared, as many of his moves are in her moveset. His playstyle has a lot of military influence with some weaponry mixed in.
I like his powerful demeanor, hand-to-hand combat, and the energy that emanates from those bladed gloves. He's got more than just a trick up his sleeve.
Once he was off the main team, he still had a role behind the scenes, doing research and giving them briefings. It's hard to say if the daughter has surpassed the father in this case, since Leona has been in many more games than Hydern, every game since her introduction, but with her longevity in these tournaments, it shows that Hydern's morals and training are rock solid.
さよなら
Winner.
力は制御できるけどそれに頼るつもりはない
Number 4. Ken from Street Fighter. I feel like Ken has had the most character movement of all Street Fighter characters. We've seen him be a fighter with no other distractions, get married, have a kid, and then teach that kid how to fight. Eventually, Mel Masters will be a playable character one day, or they can just make Sean playable again, the true heir to the Masters legacy. I think what makes Ken a great father is simply, he's always there for his family. He's with his wife and son most of the time after his kid is born in the story. He still meets up with Ryu from time to time or goes on the occasional world-saving mission, but for the most part, he just works his office job and bonds with his son.
Ken's a great family man. He really took Guile's advice to heart.
Father Ken was seen in Street Fighter 3 and beyond, where his moveset evolved more and more, but it still follows the same general game plan in terms of how he attacks in comparison to his younger self.
I love his classic playstyle. Those hurricane kicks and Hadouken really show why he's the American champ. And look at those super moves. He really turns up the heat.
Number 3, Kim Cap-1 from Fatal Fury. Before there was King of Fighters, there was Fatal Fury, and before we knew about Hydern, Kim was the original SNK fighting game dad. Well, technically, Geese Howard was, but Terry raised Geese's son much better than Geese ever could have, so Kim it is. I like Kim as a dad for the same reason I like Ken. Kim does everything he should. No fancy backstory, just a hardworking guy who goes home to be with his kids at the end of the day. He's pretty serious about that. When you end the game with Kim, he is seen taking his kids along to wherever the tournament victory leads him. It doesn't matter the stakes of the plot, he's smiling at the camera with them hanging out by his side, proud of their dad. We even see them around when Kim's doing his job of teaching criminals how to be upstanding citizens, which you'd think could be potentially dangerous with children in the vicinity, but I guess Kim keeps the bad guys in line.
I like the fact that he brings his kids everywhere. He certainly doesn't need to worry about daycare or babysitters, and he's a great example to them by rehabilitating criminals.
He's also a good influence to his kids on the fighting level. As discussed on my fighting game Taekwondo list, Kim's a master of the leg-based martial art, Taekwondo.
I really like his dive kicks and his flip kicks. Actually, I really like all of his kicks. He's got speed and power.
It's clear his lessons had an impact on his kids because when they were teenagers in the game Garo Mark of the Wolves, they both had aspects of Kim's playstyle. One of them was even thinking about pursuing Kim's line of work, though the kids had fire and electricity added to some attacks. I don't remember those teachings from Kim's dojo. Where'd they learn those?
Probably their mom.
Okay. Well, Kim doesn't need the elements, he just has pure muscle. Number 2, Martial Law from Tekken. The Father of the Year award gets lonely in the Tekken universe. In the main family we follow, Heihachi wants to kill his son Kazuya, Kazuya wants to kill his son Jin, Jin doesn't have a kid so he's off the hook for now, and Heihachi's father Jinpachi was revived as a demon man so the jury is still out on him. The point is, the Mishima family is where you go when you're looking at what not to do as a dad. However, the dad who has shown exemplary parenting methods in Tekken is Martial Law, the fighting chef who owns a dojo and bears a resemblance to a much more famous guy.
Hey, it's Bruce Lee.
Martial Law uses the Jeet Kune Do style that Bruce Lee developed, and then Martial taught it to his son Forrest, who used it when he replaced Martial on the Tekken 3 roster, along with his later appearances in the tag tournament games. While he was poised to be the new young rep for the Law family, Martial, who appeared in the first 2 games, replaced Forrest in Tekken 4 after his only canonical appearance in Tekken 3. I'm not sure why. Maybe people found Martial to be a more compelling character. He's a chef, what's not to love? But it was unseen for an older character to flat out replace their replacement in the Tekken series. It was unexplained in Tekken 4, but at least Tekken 5 had the narrative that Forrest was injured when on a motorcycle joyride using Paul Phoenix's wheels, so now Martial was taking his spot on the roster and entering the tournament to pay for his medical treatment.
He's a great dad for coming out of retirement to raise money for his son's hospital bills.
He ultimately failed at winning the tournament, so I like to think that he nursed his son back to health on his own with his restaurant quality cooking.
I bet you he makes great chicken soup, just like Mom.
In terms of other fatherly actions, we see him just hanging out with his son in certain arcade mode endings when Forrest already has an in-game playable model, like when Martial is showing him how to use the nunchaku, but Forrest accidentally flings them out the window and hits a car. Like any good parent when their kid makes a mistake, he just shrugs it off and says, "It's okay, sport, it's just an accident, a $10,000 accident." These honorable mentions will be dedicated to the dads from series already discussed that may have been omitted due to the 1 per series of origin rule. Donovan from Darkstalkers, Rock and Sunghan Myung from Soul Calibur, Soul Bad Guy from Guilty Gear, Goro and Saishu Kusanagi from King of Fighters, Guile and Hakan from Street Fighter, Terry from Fatal Fury and Garo Mark of the Wolves, and Roger from Tekken. Oh, and Jax, Kenshi, and Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. Wait, I didn't discuss Mortal Kombat on this list. Oh, that's right, I'm going to. Number 1, Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat. Original Johnny was never a father, but in the rebooted timeline, Johnny got some extra character development beyond learning how to work with a team. He marries Sonya and has a daughter, Cassie, and him and his daughter have a great relationship, but his Mortal Kombat 11 arcade mode ending shows us that he wasn't always the great dad dad we see in present day. After seeing a younger Cassie had no respect for him, he came to the realization that he needs to be a better person and better dad, especially since Sonya was off on Special Forces missions.
He always wants the best for his daughter, abandoning his party lifestyle to raise her in a loving home when Sonya was away. And she's a good fighter because of him.
So from that day forward, he raised and trained his daughter, giving her all the attention she deserved. I'm not sure if his first lesson was where to aim your kicks or how to tell a lame joke.
This is me, swiping left.
Her physical moves are very nimble, showing she's learned a lot from her dad, who's always been pretty agile. I mean, sometimes those shadow kicks look a little stiff, but he shows he still has the moves after another 20 years or so, plus some new ones.
I like his flip kicks and acrobatic moves, and he certainly puts his Oscar to good use.
The Johnny-Cassie father-daughter relationship is very strong. He's generally seen as a coach for her crew, but knows when he can pull it back and just be a dad. He's got his worldly advice he can either deliver as a joke or treat completely seriously, depending on the situation. He also had to reason with Sonya on how her tone and attitude toward Cassie could tear their mother-daughter relationship if she did not step out of her work mood during family time. And that embrace that he gave Cassie after Sonya died in the mission is the perfect visual representation of what family means to Johnny. And if none of that drama convinces you that Johnny Cage is best dad, then take a look at his style.
Gee, engraved brass knuckles. Does he have cufflinks to match?
He probably has sunglasses to match instead, considering he cherishes those as much as his own family.
Does he wear his sunglasses at night? Hey, that could be his theme song.
He's definitely cheesy enough to do that, even though not every character got the attention that Johnny received in the rebooted timeline stories. Johnny stole the spotlight like the performer he is and showed us how he's the top dad in fighting games.
Johnny Cage wins.
Now, what did you think? Which fighting game dads that we discussed earned their Father of the Year trophy, and who gives them competition that may have been overlooked? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.